Arthur Schopenhauer's approach to behavior is an important factor to consider when studying the character of humanity. He warns us to be aware of the potential for a variety of people to stir up trouble and make our lives difficult and unpleasant. These people can be leaders, bosses, colleagues, and friends, and can be aggressive or passive-aggressive. When it is too late, we can discover that their confidence is irrational and their ideas are ill-conceived. We can also be frustrated when we realize that some of the anger and tension from within has leaked out, and we should put our weight into a project or scheme only. The most important details of the phrases behavior and who are that we can control our own behavior, and that we often have no clue as to what causes them. We can understand why people behave irrationally and reveal a dark side to their character, or why we turn to leaders who appeal to the worst in the US. If we could understand the roots of human behavior, we would be able to anticipate their nasty and manipulative maneuvers and their stories, and not allow ourselves to get dragged into their dramas. We would recognize that our interest in their control would depend on their control. The most important details of the phrases behavior, who, and look are that we are compelled to desire what other people have or to identify so strongly with a group that we feel contempt for those on the outside. We are also subject to forces from deep within us that drive our behavior and that operate below the level of our awareness. Look at our anger and frustration as the cause of this emotion, and if we were honest and dug down deeper, we would see that what often triggers our anger or frustration has deeper roots. We can discern distinct patterns when we look when this or that happens, and we are not reflective or rational. The most important details of the phrases behavior, who, and how are we? Human nature stems from the particular weaving of our brains and the configuration of our nervous system, which has developed and emerged over the course of the 5 million years or so of our evolution. The evolution of human emotion was based on the ability to communicate with one another before the invention of language, and the signs of these emotions could be read immediately on their faces. Humans remain highly sensitive to the moods and emotions of those around them, and this has led to the development of novel forms of communication and ways of maintaining group discipline. This early development continues to determine our behavior even in the modern sophisticated world, where we need to continually rank ourselves and measure our self-worth through our status as a trait that is noticeable among all hunter-gatherer cultures and even among chimpanzees. Our tribal instincts also cause us to divide people into insiders or outsiders. The most important details of the phrases behavior are that they refer to the forces of human nature that have been present throughout the history of time, such as envy, grandiosity, irrationality, short-sightedness, conformity, and passive aggression. These forces lead to empathy and other positive forms of human behavior. For thousands of years, we have labored under illusions about the human animal, and have found signs of primitive nature and our animal roots deeply distressing something to deny and repress. However, we can overcome our resistance to the truth about who we are by gaining knowledge about human nature and exploring the literature in psychology amassed over the last 100 years. This includes detailed studies of childhood, the impact of early development, the roots of narcissism, and the configuration of our emotions. Arthur Schopenhauer's works of philosophers such as Friedrich Nietzsche, José Ortega y Gasset, George Eliot Henry James, and Ralph Ellison are used to explore the unseen parts of our behavior. This book is an attempt to gather together knowledge and ideas from different branches to create a more accurate and instructive guide to understanding human nature. It is a brutally realistic appraisal of our species and laws of human nature, and each chapter has stories of iconic individuals or individuals who influence the law. It also discusses how to transform the basic human force into something more positive and productive, and how to do so. The book is progressive and enlightened, and shows how we are now technologically advanced. The most important details of the phrases behavior, human nature, outsiders, people are that the permeability of emotions has only been heightened through social media. The aggression is now openly displayed in the virtual world, and the laws of human nature are designed to immerse us in all aspects of human behavior and illuminate its root causes. These laws will help to transform people into calmer and more strategic observers of people, helping to free them from emotional drama. By revealing that people are generally dealing with emotions and issues, they can help to avoid falling into this trap. The book encourages readers to stop taking personal comments and instead rely on the desire to understand their behavior. It also encourages people to be less prone to moralizing and judging people based on their own preconceptions. The laws will make it easier to interpret the cues that people emit and to judge their character normally. People should also be aware of the potential for deceptive first impressions and instead train themselves to analyze the behavior of others. Finally, they should take note of what often appears out of character is actually more of their true character. The laws will teach us to take action against toxic types who can cause long-term emotional damage, such as envy and manipulative behavior. Will lead to a more positive and hypnotic effect, allowing them to set the right tone through their attitude, empathy and work. The laws will also make it easier to recognize how deeply the forces of human nature operate within each individual and to be aware of their own passive-aggressive tendencies. Finally, the laws will transform one into a more empathetic individual, creating deeper and more satisfying bonds with people around them. The most important details of the phrases people, feel, and are all connected to a power developed by ancient ancestors in which they learned how to intuit the moods and feelings of others by placing themselves in their perspective. This practice requires a degree of humility and understanding of the complexity of human behavior. It is a therapeutic and liberating experience to be drawn outside ourselves and into the world of others, and it is what attracts us to film and any form of fiction. The laws will alter how we see our own potential, making us aware of a higher ideal self within us. Human nature is a combination of impulses that pull us down into emotional reactions and defensive postures, making us feel self-righteous and superior to others. This encourages us to adopt what other people are thinking and to connect with others to absorb our minds. The book helps us to become aware of the potentially positive and active elements contained in each law, as well as our own thoughts and emotions. It also teaches us how to forge an attitude that is expansive and fearless, and to compare ourselves with others. With this knowledge, we can become an apprentice in human nature and use it as an opportunity to excel in society through our superior work. Athens and Sparta were two powers that clashed in the late 7th century BC. Athens was a democratic state under Spanish rule, while Sparta was a capitalist state and a confederation of oligarchies. The Athenians received news of a new set of terms of peace from the city-state of Sparta, which led to a declaration of war if Athens did not agree with them. This could have devastating consequences for the defeated side, including the loss of its influence in the region. To prevent this, it is important to develop skills such as the ability to observe and measure the character of others, as well as to become more rational and productive. By doing so, one can become a better self-aware and productive individual. The most important details of the phrases Spartan, Athens, Pericles, Athenian are that a few days after the Athenian assembly met on the Pnyx hill overlooking the Acropolis to debate the Spartan ultimatum and decide what to do, the assembly was open to all Athenali citizens. The debate was in a state of great agitation, with some suggesting that Athens should seize the initiative and attack Sparta. Athenian leader Pericles was beloved and was found to be a very peculiar leader, more of a religious philosopher than a politician. The Athenians had preferred a certain personality type in their leaders, who could give an inspiring persuasive speech and had a flair for drama on the battlefield. This led to highly divisive politics, with Pericles entering public life around 3200 BC and Athenian politics never being the same again. Pericles was a Greek general who worked to increase the voice of the craftsmen in the legislature and give them greater power in the democracy. He argued against the Athenians' democratic empire and used the surplus of money to consolidate the empire and strengthen existing alliances. He initiated a massive public building project in Athens, commissioning temples, theaters and concert halls, and favored a form of architecture that reflected his personal aesthetics. His greatest commission was the Parthenon, the guiding spirit of Athena, which was a goddess of wisdom and practical intelligence that represented all of the values Pericles wanted to promote. His speaking style was restrained and dignified, and he did not go in for the usual flights of rhetoric. Pericles was a leader who remained in power for years and was accused of being an atheist. He proposed a new form of warfare called war with Sparta, which was limited and defensive, inviting the people to join him on land. He argued that the war party within Sparta would be ultimately won, with minimal expenditure of lives and money. This was met with opposition from the Peloponnesians, who felt that such a war would set a dangerous precedent. The most important details of the phrases Athens, Pericles, Athenians, Spartans are that Pericles' plan to win the fateful war was approved by the Athenians and was not met with resistance from the Spartans. In the second year of the war, a powerful plague invaded Athens and spread quickly, killing over 1/3 of the citizenry and decimating the ranks of the army. Pericles himself caught the disease and witnessed the ultimate nightmare he had done for Athens over many decades. The Athenians did not mourn for their leader and instead were angry with the Spartans who used the plague to advance their positions. This event fed off the people's growing bitterness towards the Spartans, who promised they would regain the initiative and crush the Spartans with an offensive strategy. The most important details of the phrases Athens, Pericles, Athenians, Spartans are that Athens attacked the island of Melos, and when the Melians surrendered, the Athenians voted to kill all of their men and sell the women and children into slavery. In 415 BC, several Athenian leaders had an idea to deliver the fatal blow. The state of Syracuse was a critical ally of the Spartans. They sent 60 ships with an appropriate-sized army on board to take control of Syracuse, but one of the commanders assigned to this plan had doubts as to the wisdom of the plan. The Athenians were underestimating the strength of Syracuse and only a much larger expedition was necessary to ensure victory. The Spartans were humiliated at the day of the launching of the ships, and nothing would deter them from seeing the riches that would pour into Athens. The Athenians were renowned for their wealth and power, and this was reflected in their armada, which was a ship-sized wonder. Athens was plagued by a rumor from a barber in Athens's port town of Perez that every ship and almost every man had been wiped out in battle. This led to panic and Athens being forced to agree to the harsh terms of peace imposed by Sparta. Pericles surveyed the scene early in his career and noticed that every Athenian political figure believed he was rational, had realistic goals and plans on how to get there, and that the Athenians all worked hard for their political factions and tried to increase their power. This ultimately led to the defeat of the Greeks and the loss of their empire. The most important details of the phrases Athens, Pericles, Athenians, and Athena are that Athens was a mess and the democracy was fragile due to chaos and self-destructiveness. Pericles was a thinker and public figure who came up with a unique and powerful solution to the problem of violence. He believed that the human mind should have its attention focused on something it values, and this was the source of Athena's intelligence. Athena was born from the head of Zeus and was the voice that comes to heroes in need, instilling a calm spirit to help them achieve their goals. Her spirit guided great generals, inventors, and traders, allowing them to see the world with perfect clarity and take action. Athena Pericles was a Greek philosopher who stood for rationality and was able to make a human act with divine wisdom to cultivate his inner emotions. He trained himself to never react to a strong emotion and instead had to physically retire from the heated assembly and retire to his house. He decided to base his political decisions on the greater good of Athens, and his goal was to unify the citizenry through genuine love of democracy. He believed in the superiority of the Athenian way and worked to increase the participation and power of the lower and middle classes. His greatest achievement of the public works project that transformed Athens was his greatest effort of all the deliberative process, and he opened his mind to as many ideas and options as possible. With a calm spirit and an open mind, he hit upon policies that sparked one of the true golden ages in history. The Sicilian expedition was a story of a man who was able to infect an entire atmosphere with his rational spirit. He had been motivated by a desire to grab more land and understand the potential consequences of this decision. Athena is not a power, but a voice that stands for a higher power. It is important to focus on one or two ideas that satisfy our immediate desire for power and to entertain a wide range of options and solutions. The voice of Athena will become clearer and clearer when people besiege you with their endless dramas and emotions. Training and practicing Athena will help to make the mind more flexible and resilient. Fyodor Dostoevsky was a raw youth key to human nature who was blamed for any bad decisions or miscalculations. He argued that people often seek an explanation for why their plans were awry or why they faced sudden resistance to their ideas. However, when we look for a cause, our minds tend to revolve around the same types of explanations, which can lead to increased emotions, anger, frustration, and depression. The crash of 2008 was an example of this, as it highlighted the deep-rooted irrationality of our minds and the inability to respond to it with emotion. The crash of 2008 was caused by a combination of trade imbalances, government regulation, lack of government oversight, computer models, and trading systems. Millions of people made decisions on whether to invest or not invest in the stock of their transactions, but decided not to. The crash was driven by the basic irrationality of the market, as well as the lure of easy money. This led to the panic and crash, which was met with unbridled optimism and the fear of outside forces. The crash of 2008 was a result of the same types of events in England and the South Sea bubble of the 1720s. In England, the law was passed to limit speculation, but it was not effective due to the intense emotional pull an individual mind had on people. Animals were able to sense danger in the environment and respond quickly, responding to the stimulus with a high level of arousal and eventually becoming more sensitive to the environment. This was a better chance of survival than any other animals. Social animals and humans have evolved over the centuries to include the development of language and abstract thinking. This evolution has led to the higher mammalian brain being composed of three parts: the reptilian part of the brain, the old mammalian or limbic brain, and the neocortex. For humans, language emotions originate as physical arousal designed to capture our attention and cause us to take notice of things around us. This is done through chemical reactions and translations into words, which can be difficult to understand. Anger is a feeling that is often caused by someone in the past who hurt us deeply. Social animals and animals are both prone to unconscious emotions and can be difficult to interpret. This can lead to compulsive behavior in children who have been abandoned by their parents and can create patterns of abandonment in later life. The communication function of emotions is a critical factor for social animals, as it is difficult to communicate anger when one person cannot see the other person, leading to cascading misinterpretations. Animals are unable to translate physical sensations into abstract language emotions, making it difficult to understand the split between emotions and cognition. Technology has not changed the forms of emotions, leaving us feeling as violent or superstitious as our ancestors. The Athenians in the assembly had less mental space to step back and think. They were as besieged with emotions and drama as the rest of the population. This has led to an increase in irrationality, with people engaging in introspection and effort to subtract emotions from their thinking and counteract their effect. Over time, people are able to complete projects and create something that lasts irrational, leading to negative patterns and never realizing anger or desires for change. It is important to judge over time whether a person is rational or irrational and can sustain success through good strategies. The most important details of the phrases Athenians, Pericles, irrational, and rational are that in a divorce proceeding with child custody issues, rational people will manage to let go of their bitterness and prejudice and reason what is in the best overall interests of the child, while irrational people will become consumed with a power struggle against the spouse, leading to a deep-seated desire for vengeance. When it comes to hiring an assistant or partner, the irrational person will easily fall under the spell of those who know how to feed their natural emotions and will hire them without realizing the reasons that will lead to mistakes and inefficiencies for which they will blame others. To acquire irrationality, one must become aware of the degree of awareness that rational people can easily admit their own irrational tendencies and the need to be vigilant. Pericles himself valued bold and creative action. He loved the spirit of Athena and the inspiration she brought, and wanted Athenians to feel love for their city and empathy for their fellow citizens. A state of balance is needed to understand why we feel the way we do, conscious of our impulses and emotions so that we can think without being secretly compelled by our emotions. Reverse irrationality is a state of mental distress caused by a lack of control over one's emotions. It is the source of more acute problems, crises, conflicts, and disastrous decisions. To help move towards rationality, one must understand the 3 steps and incorporate these steps into their study and practice. This will help them to recognize the reactive state as it is happening and pull back before making decisions. Additionally, they can strengthen the thinking part of the brain and give it more power in the eternal struggle with their emotions. The pleasure principle and its unconscious influence have been identified as the source of all of our mental biases. This includes the desire for pleasure and the avoidance of pain, which often leads to a withdrawal from reality. Confirmation bias is another form of confirmation bias which can occur in people's plans, particularly those with high stakes. This is seen in the rosy scenario when people are asked for advice and want to hear their own opinions and preferences confirmed by an expert opinion. It is important to take a look at theories that seem too good to be true statistics and studies. The most important details to consider when defending an argument are the evidence that supports the argument, as well as the idea itself. To prove the validity of an argument, it is important to examine the evidence yourself with fervor and conviction. This can be done by finding evidence that confirms cherished beliefs and those of others, that is true science conviction bias. However, when we see certain negative or positive qualities in people, such as social awkwardness, intelligence, and politeness, we are likely to fall for the halo effect. To do this, we should find ways to present the front that is appropriate and judged positively, presenting ourselves as hardworking and conscientious. The pleasure principle is an important concept that suggests that people should not be taken up by a group, as it can lead to a feeling of isolation and fear. It also encourages people to take up ideas and opinions from others, even if they are not listening to them. People should instead focus on the individual's own experiences and learn from them, rather than worrying about what others will think. This can help to prevent people from making mistakes and not repeating the mistakes they made. The most important details from this text are that people's experience and decisions can have a significant impact on their world and career paths, and that they may be more rational and morally superior than others. It is important to be aware of the potential for deception and manipulation in one's work, as well as Machiavellian tactics, which can lead to a lowering level of arousal and capture the emotions that come with it. Low-grade emotions can be caused by our own impulses, while high-grade emotions are caused by external factors such as getting under our skin or certain circumstances. High-grade emotion can be triggered by something external, leading to increased tension and low-grade emotion. The most important details to remember about emotion and experience are that in the middle of an attack, we should be aware of high-grade irrationality in others to either get out of their way or help bring them back to reality. In early childhood, we were at our most sensitive and vulnerable relationship to our parents, and this had a much greater impact on us. We should try to repress the memory of these influences if they are associated with positive emotions such as love and attention. A young man who had a distant narcissistic mother as an infant experienced her coldness as abandonment, and to be abandoned must mean he was somehow unworthy of her love. In a relationship, a woman hinted at disapproval of some trait or action of his, all of which was part of a healthy relationship. The way to recognize this in ourselves and in others is by noticing behavior that is suddenly childish in its intensity and seemingly out of character. This could center on any key emotion, such as fear of losing control of failure, and we should react by withdrawing from the situation. The phrase emotional is used to describe the fear and uncertainty caused by a sudden illness caused by intense fear. This can be linked to the past, as people may be programmed to repeat the past experience in order to strengthen the wound. The fear of these emotions can lead to a different tone of voice and body language, as if they were physically reliving a moment from early life. It can also lead to the start of any kind of addiction and manic behavior. Finally, it is important to recognize the basic wisdom that true success must come through hard work, as luck plays in such sudden gains. People and business people can both experience extreme stress and losses that can lead to depression and other mental health issues. It is important to be aware of these risks and to respond to them with pessimism, apathy, and negative thinking skills. People should also monitor any signs of unusual or sensitivity and should find time and space to be alone. Through self-awareness and reflection, people can prevent themselves from making decisions and avoid regret. The group effect is a phenomenon in which people experience intense emotions from different cultures and beliefs. These emotions can range from love, hatred to confidence and mistrust, and can be quite narcissistic if they project their internal drama and troubles outward. It is best to recognize these inflamers by their ability to affect others and to distance oneself from them. The group effect can be viral as some opinion spreads over social media and infects people with the desire to share their opinion. The group effect is a phenomenon that is often caused by the use of emotive words such as justice or truth or patriotism, which are used to stir a continual sense of panic, urgency, and outrage. To protect yourself from this, one must consider their reasoning powers, the ability to think for themselves, and any kind of intrusion that can lead to irrationality. This phenomenon has been seen throughout history, from the golden age of Pericles to the age of superstition, cults, and intolerance, and has changed its look in the 20th century. The show trials of Stalin, the McCarthy hearings, and the mass persecutions during the Chinese Cultural Revolution are all examples of how cults of personality are being increasingly popular. Polls have revealed that increasing numbers of people believe in ghosts, spirits, and angels in the 21st century. The irrational is at work. Step 3: strategies towards bringing out the rational self, and these strategies include the existence of people of high rationality, such as Pericles, Ashoka, Marcus Aurelius, Marguerite de Valois, Leonardo da Vinci, Charles Darwin, Abraham Lincoln, Anton Chekhov, Margaret Mead, and Warren Buffett. In all cases, almost all of us have experienced moments of greater rationality, and strategies are designed to help bring out this inner self. The most important details to remember when it comes to relationships are that it is important to reflect on how one's weaknesses come out in moments of stress, such as the desire to please or control, deep levels of mistrust, and to examine their strengths and weaknesses. This can help them to decide upon goals that mesh with their long-term interests and that are aligned with their skills. Additionally, they should use a journal to record their assessments with ruthless objectivity and find a neutral position from which they can observe their actions with detachment and humor. When the emotional self suddenly rears its head again, one should be able to step back and increase their reaction time through practice and repetition, and this could involve physically removing themselves from a place where they can be alone and not feeling any pressure to respond. People can be a major source of emotional turmoil, but it is important to resist this by considering resistance training and reflection instead of hiring or being hired by them. It is also important to make acceptance of human nature as radical as possible to calm down and help to observe people more dispassionately. This will give you more balance and calmness, more mental space for thinking, as seen in the Russian writer Anton Chekhov's family, who was large and poor, and his father was an alcoholic who mercilessly beat all of the children. People should strive to make understanding people a fun game instead of trying to change them. Chekhov, a doctor and veterinarian, applied his training as a doctor to the human animal to understand what makes us so irrational and dangerous. He found it therapeutic to get inside his characters and make sense of even the worst types of people. He demythologized the brutes and irritants and cut them down to human size, rather than antagonizing them. He believed that the two are intertwined and that there is inevitably a dominant factor, the horse and the horse, that leads to the most effective action. The horse has tremendous energy and power, but it is wild, subject to predators, and can be useless without a rider. The rider and rider must work together to bring as much thinking as possible to a situation and enter action with boldness and a spirit of adventure. The most important details of the phrases "people" in this text are that people are skeptical of their own enthusiasms and those of others, and that it is important to maintain a balance between skepticism and curiosity. It is also important to not see the path to rationality as something painful or ascetic, but rather as a more satisfying and pleasurable path that brings more powerful and satisfying emotions. This is exemplified in the example of Pericles himself, who envisioned the goddess Athena embodying all of the practical powers of rationality and worshipped and loved her. People should strive to internalize their power and motivate themselves to develop this power, just as much as they can trust their own feelings. The most important details of the phrases "people" and "influential" are that they are all connected to self-love and empathy, and that this is a powerful tool for connecting to and attaining social power. However, narcissists are narcissistic narcissists who are driven by a need for attention and need to be recognized and appreciated for who they are. This need is also deeply psychological, as it is so important to humans that people will do almost anything to get attention and look behind almost any action. Ultimately, this need is the primary motivation in trying to satisfy our hunger for attention, but it is only possible to compete with our siblings at school, with classmates at work, with colleagues. Deep narcissists are people who lack a coherent sense of self and are often taken for granted. This self-image is composed of our tastes, opinions, and values, and can be difficult to escape. It can be a source of motivation and validation, but it can also be dangerous if it is too divorced from reality. To create a self that is acceptable, one must focus on the things that bring them attention and recognition, and then reflect on their own self-esteem. This can be done between the ages of 40 and 5, when they are beginning to separate from their parents. Deep narcissists are someone who are self-absorbed and have no self-esteem, so they are dependent on attention from others to make them feel justified and worthy. They can be either abandoned or have difficulty forming a self-worth, and are often addicted to the hits of attention they can get from others. In their 20s and 30s, they have failed to develop a cohesive sense of self, leading to a nightmare of not being able to imagine a self that is superior to others. To combat this, parents should identify the best qualities of their parents and encourage them to feel strong and recognize their unique qualities. Deep narcissists have an unusual relationship with self-concept, where they tend to view others as extensions of themselves and seek attention and validation. This can lead to dangerous isolation and can be put to the test by having enemies in all directions. They can also display extreme self-confidence and be prone to vicious bouts of envy if they see others getting the attention they feel they deserve. In a relationship, they will slowly make the partner cut off contact with acquaintances, showing no competition for attention. Deep narcissists tend to be erratic and volatile, but can be difficult to focus on their work due to their lack of self-esteem and impatience and anxiety. Types tend to change jobs, and caregivers often lack recognition for their accomplishments, leading to a deep narcissist's tendency to artificially stimulate attention. This can be harmful if not paying attention, as it can entangle people in their never-ending dramas and make them feel guilty. To deal with this, it is important to get out of their way and identify them as deep narcissists. Narcissistic leadership is a type of dictatorship that has been around for a long time and is characterized by its narcissistic self-confidence and tendency to attract attention and followers. This type of leadership is more dangerous and toxic due to its potential to inflate the grandiose energies of those in power and can lead to people's downfall. It is important to be aware of the potential for narcissistic rage and to use this power to justify their power, as it can give them more opportunities to be the center of attention.